Oh, hey, check it out. Looks like I'm live. I didn't realize it would start right away this way, but awesome. Hey guys, it's RodimusPrimal, and we are live with a Transformers live stream for you guys. And I'm looking at, looks like I can see your live stream comments and stuff like that. I think. Right? No? Yeah. So if you can hear me, if everything's going on, what's going on? How is it going, everybody? How's it going? I see some of the comments like ahead of time, and I know I started a little early, but it was earlier than I wanted to. But because I've been, looking at my live stream software, and I just went with OBS to try and get it going. And I haven't been online in like forever, right? And I haven't been on YouTube about a month, I think, since I made my last Transformers video, which is not really good. It's not good for my for the algorithm. It's not good for the channel. And I've been working on stuff, a lot of stuff in the background that I've been working on, but some stuff I can talk about and some stuff I can't. So, but yeah, it does feel like a long time, right? I could see your comments. I'm looking to see if I can actually. Oh no, I'm looking to see it. Yeah, I don't know if I can actually add you in, if there's like a plugin for OBS that allows me to like have overlays, because I've been using different streaming services, and they always charge you a lot of money for it, and it's always like, why do it that way, right? When I'm just gonna do a quickie live stream, gonna talk about Transformers news like I typically do, and we'll talk about everything. We'll talk about you know whatever Transformers news has happened over the last month. Everything from, you name it, like G2 Menasor and Armada Jetfire, and they're probably going to reissue Armada Optimus with that, and Transformers 1 Thundercracker, and then a bunch of non G1 Studio Series figures, which makes G1 hating uh, Transformers fans happy, I'm sure. But actually, there's a lot of cool stuff out there. But um, you know, but we'll talk about that all. And I'll wait until a few more people show up and start coming in. Like as I starting to see many of you start to work your way into the live stream and into the chat and just talking about whatever. So I've yeah, I know it's like it's very impromptu. Like I literally made this like live stream like right at the last minute and said, "Hey, why don't I go live with it instead of just trying to pre-record it and edit it and take all that time that it takes a lot of time to do that. I don't think people realize how long it really takes to edit, like live streams and stuff like that. So, but I'm appreciative of every single person who continues to tune in and watch like all my retrospectives and news videos and stuff, but yeah. But let's get into some business, shall we? First and foremost, I do want to make an early announcement. And for some of you probably wanted to know why it has taken me. You know what? Maybe let me talk about one Transformers news story, and then I'll give you guys a life update about like what's going on. Um, you know, with stuff, because I think that you guys probably want to talk more Transformers news, I'm sure. Right? So let's get into some Transformers news, and then we'll come back to me personally, and then we'll talk about more of the Transformers news. So here we go. Generation 2 Menasor. Probably should have talked about him going on about 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, Takara announced that they were doing a Generation 2 Menasor. And to a lot of people who really wanted the Generation 2 set of these Stunticons, like, this is like right up your alley, right? The biggest issue that some people have an issue with is the fact that 3 of them were released at retail and the other 2 have not hit US retail. So here you are, you're getting the full-on box set of all 5 Stunticons in their Generation 2 colors, but you're not getting it in, you're not getting them individually. So if you already have the Black Drag Strip, the Generation 2 Breakdown, and Dead End, Wild Rider and Motormaster are not out there, right? But now we get to see, like, they are releasing this set in a 5-pack. And the individual Stunticons themselves all have much closer Generation 2 colors and stylings than even what Hasbro released. So you've got this, like, big stamp of a Decepticon symbol on Motormaster, and you've got, like, this Breakdown has a little bit more colors than what they released at retail too. And even, like, the Black Drag Strip, figure, has different colors and stylings than what they did there. And his full color scheme looks cool. Personally speaking, like, I'm happy with the Menasor figure that I've got. Like, for me, Generation 1 Menasor, perfect. I don't necessarily need another one. What I am surprised about is that, they didn't do a Masquerade set, if that makes sense. Like, do an Optimus into them or whatever, because that's pretty much like a good reasoning for another Menasor figure. But some people really like this color scheme and have always dug it. And then here's, you can get a good look at Wild Rider in yellow, which is very different too. But I think that I would like to see a reissue of the Generation 1 box set that had all 5 Stunticons and stuff like that, and what have you. But I think that as far as, like, Motormaster is, not Motormaster, as far as the Stunticons are concerned, I'm actually very happy about this, because it probably means that other Generation 2 color schemes are probably going to come down the pipeline, right? So we know that Bruticus is coming, right? Like, we're going to see, like, all 5, Combaticons, and we'll probably get a Generation 2 set with that version of Bruticus. And, we already have Superion out, so I wouldn't be surprised if they do a Generation 2 set there as well. Hasbro themselves have also said that Motormaster and Wild Rider will get official US releases. So if you have already been collecting the other 3, you will get your chance to get the other Generation 2 Stunticons. It's just that Takara is doing it all as one straight box set. And it makes a lot of sense to do it that way. I think he looks cool. Some of these images are a little bit on the smaller side, and that's fine. And then you get to see what they look like in their vehicle modes together, and that's pretty cool. Now, as far as fiction is concerned, where is it here? You've got, they actually do have fiction for it, and it actually is, Takara themselves have released a 12-page manga that and I'm just going to find it right on this website so we can take a look at the... I thought this was kind of, like, so fitting, because, and yes, there is a lot of different news that I'm skipping past, and that's because I do have, there it is, the Takara Tomy New Legends Menasor G2 version web manga. So we actually get a chance to see the storyline as to why, which I have not seen it translated. I don't know if someone's already fan translated it yet, so I can't quite tell you exactly what what they're saying in the manga, but you could see, like, the Generation 1 Stunticons themselves, they fly in a Nemesis-like ship, and they're in their Generation 1 colors, and they end up turning into their G2 colors. And Breakdown here has he has an oil leak, which I think is hilarious. So this gives a reason why their color scheme got updated, which is kind of funny. Not gonna lie. But what they explain in the manga here is that Ultra Magnus, Cyclonus, and Rekgar changed colors as well. So this means that this is what G2 Cyclonus, G2 Rekgar, and G2 Ultra Magnus would look like. That means that they can release those figures in those colors if they want to go back to that episode in Generation 1 where they changed colors as well. And they end up on another planet, which is this Velocitron. So they actually go through the warp and they end up crash landing on Velocitron. So they're in a completely different, universe. And so they're in the Transformers Galaxy Force, Transformers Cybertron universe here. So there's Ransack, there's Thunderblast, and, the Stunticons themselves have changed colors. And here we've got Flatline, and they end up getting, stamped with different colors, and, this new Decepticon symbol, which I think is hysterical. I think it's hysterical. And there we go. We've got Cybertron Hotshot, and we have, all the characters from different universes. We've got Breakdown and Knockout and Shadow Striker and Lockdown, Wasp and Prowl, and then you've got Buzzsaw, from, I think this is Transformers Cybertron. So, but this all makes it all merge into like one universe. There, Blur is serving Blur, and then they participate in the race. Or at least I think so, right? So this is part of the whole Velocitron Speedia 500, right? So it's a cool way to try and like make the universe work. Really, it's more so it's just like a crossover comic, right? Like all these different Transformers universes all come together. They land on, planet Velocitron. I guess they explain this is why their colors look a little bit different. So apparently when they had gone through the warp zone itself, there is a material that warped their colors, which explains their color schemes being different. But so yeah, it would be kind of cool if the manga actually got translated. But it is a cool way to integrate it all. So here you've got Metroplex. Oh, and that kind of gives you a reason for, there's Menasor. He combines, but the cars don't attach to him, so they still have to attach. And then when he finally does, he's able to fight off against Metroplex, which is it's so cool. I think it's so cool that they actually integrated all this in. And then you've got a version of Nemesis Prime, and I'm guessing this is Energon Shock Blast, but in a G1 Shockwave body. Just based upon his colors. But that I could be wrong. So I think it's kind of neat. Maybe they might actually have the Nemesis transform in these colors. So they give you a reason to buy the Nemesis in a different color scheme. So there you go. That's the whole manga. So yeah, Missing Link Nemesis. Kind of cool. Not gonna lie. And I think it's cool that they actually try to integrate this way that you can actually have a reason to have the Generation 2 Stunticons. And it also means it gives you a reason why all the Generation 2 Transformers have different colors, I guess. Maybe do something similar. Maybe actually make a whole storyline for it. So, this is Transformers New Legends, I guess is like what they're calling it. Yeah, Shattered Glass Nemesis. Or Missing Link Nemesis or something. Or yeah, well, Missing Link Nemesis is the Nemesis Prime. So, still, kind of a cool way to make the color schemes work. So, let's talk about this guy. Commander Class, Age of the Primes, Armada Jetfire. So, what we've got here is the minicons that form the Requiem Blaster. He doesn't have his own minicon, what is it, Comator, I think his name was. But as far as a robot mode is concerned, I think he looks cool. I still have my original Jetfire from Armada, but this one obviously is going to be a little bit more posable. Also, he is going to merge with Armada Optimus Prime. So here you can see him here with the Requiem Blaster. Got his jet mode, and then of course you got the box art. Does it actually... It doesn't advertise the combine mode. Wow, I'm surprised about that. So like, here you can see how the minicons can like integrate onto him. And then you have the Requiem Blaster there, you know, on the back of the box, which is cool. And then Mark, you know, on the Hasbro team actually shows what the combined version looks like. So here is the combined Optimus with Jetfire. Now, speaking of this combination, I have started to lean on this like idea that Armada Jetfire, or not Armada Jetfire, the Transformers Armada played a major plot device point for the live action films, because Optimus combining with a Jetfire, right? A Decepticon helicopter from Cyclonus to Blackout, right? To a Demolisher being a big giant tire. You know, and they probably wanted to go with a Hot Shot, but they went with Bumblebee since they had gotten the Bumblebee, trademark back. But then again, I mean, I think that's what they were also doing with Transformers Animated. That was like a whole thing, like of the time. So it's just kind of like my opinion. Like, you know, I've been starting to lean on that. But there it is with the original toy. And the original toy was actually a pretty good figure. Not gonna lie. So it's like they have the figure there to actually like contrast and compare. And this new one is going to be a little bit more posable in places where the original was not. But it's still like both. Like the idea is that it combines with Optimus. Like that's the whole reason. And they said they're going to probably reissue Armada Optimus from, I think it was Legacy, one of the 3 Legacy lines, right? Like it was Transformers Legacy. So I see you guys' comments, and you guys are talking about how the idea that you don't have an attachment to it. And you know, I'm not gonna lie, I don't have a big giant attachment. I think it's really great for the non-G1 fan. You know, when they actually release newer figures and they put all they can to make the new version of that toy great. The original Armada toys were great bricks. They were more based around the idea of the minicon activating a gimmick. And those toys were bricks. And like I don't have any attachment that Armada fans have for it either. Like if I could actually sell off my entirety of what I have left of my Unicron trilogy stuff, I would do so. Because I don't want or don't need any of it at all. Like I could quite literally just sell off the entirety of everything I have left of my Unicron trilogy collection, and I would be content, you know. Even for characters that I like Demolisher, I would just want them to make a new version of Armada Demolisher and just like add that to, you know, my shelves and stuff like that. But I don't have a big attachment for a lot of Unicron trilogy stuff. And you know what I've noticed is when I go to Walmart, there are a ton of Flatlines and Armada red alerts. During like the last like 2 or 3 months, Hotshot, the Cybertron Hotshot, the Excellion, a whole bunch of Cybertron and Armada figures, they don't sell. they're like sitting on the toy shelves, and they're just so many of them. And I don't know if Armada has the, like, I don't know if Armada is just not selling. Like, it's just something that I've noticed. And I don't know what you guys are noticing. If you're noticing that, like, or do you see like a lot of Armada figures? Like, when you go to your local toy stores, you go to go to Walmart or Target. I hate saying local toy stores because there's no Toys R Us around anymore. But when you go to like Walmart or Target or any place that sells, action figures, do you notice that the Unicron trilogy stuff just kind of like sits on the shelf? Or is it moving? Do you think it's moving, or did they just overproduce them? Because I'm really curious about that. I really want to know what people are seeing out there as far as toys are concerned, because it's not quite like the same. So, but I hear you guys. So you guys are not as enthusiastic about the non-Generation 1 stuff, right? But you're not enthusiastic about the Armada line. I collected it because it was Transformers back in the day. I was working at Toys R Us at the time, and, I was kind of saying to myself, I'm like, I kind of wish that there was more Generation 1 stuff. I wish there was more Generation 1 stuff. And that's what was going through my mind back then. So, but anyway, before I get back into more Transformers news, I do want to let you guys know where I'm at now that a lot of you guys have tuned in and, want to know what you're seeing here. So yeah, Flatline seems to be the one that just sits, like, there's tons of like it's just on the top shelf. There's just a bunch of Flatlines and Red Alerts at my Walmart here and down in Florida. So that manga is something that Takara Tomy released on they released that manga like through the Takara Tomy's website. So it is like their storylines that they tell for Transformers Legends. So before I move on to Transformers news, actually, yeah, before I get to that, you need an Armada Red Alert. Like, I've seen a lot of them at Walmarts. Like, go to a couple Walmarts and you might see them. I've seen quite a few Flatlines. I just, it's what I've been seeing. But as far as like me, this is like the first time I've like recorded, gone on live, made a retrospective, anything on this channel for about a little bit over a month now. And I'm trying to not talk about this because I really should. But I've had a lot of stuff happening in my family life. Nothing bad with my wife or kids or anything. But a lot of stuff has been keeping me occupied from making a new video, which is why I decided to go live to begin with, because it's just easier to go live and then like, kind of go back and forth a little bit, maybe for half an hour to an hour, talking about Transformers and what have you. But my mom is ill, and we're kind of worried about her. So she's kind of going through some health issues, and it's kind of affected me in a way that I didn't expect, but I know she's going to pull through. So, yeah, I'm still going to make some, Transformers news and retrospectives and stuff, but just, man, it's getting to me. I'm not going to lie. And it affects your creativity. So like I want to talk Transformers because I want to get my mind off of it, and I don't want that to be like the reason I continue to make Transformers retrospectives and stuff and news, just because I do love the franchise and do love the brand. But and I also know Transformers is going through a lot of roller coaster stuff now too. But yeah, it's tough. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, keep my mom in your prayers. For those of you who pray, and I'm sure she's gonna be all right. But we've got some good news too for we do have some good news as far as like, like my wife and I are doing really well with my kids are getting older and learning a lot in school, so they're homeschooled, but trying to make sure things are all right with their grandma. So, but it sucks when like it's like your family gets older and they go through their health issues. So, um, but I'm gonna continue to try and be as creative as I possibly can and keep my mind focused. And I've got scripts that are like in like weird progress. Um, so like they're just like I've done a lot of research on one character, I've done a lot of research on another character, and I wrote it all down, and I'm trying to like write out the retrospectives, but like your mind wanders when you're you know trying to make sure a family is okay, and it really does make it difficult. So, but yeah, I'm appreciative for all of you guys tuning in, watching my videos, and continuing to watch them because you know, I saw a comment on one of my videos recently, and I read it, and I was just um, you know, like how do I would put it? Uh, the comment said like you've covered so many Transformers characters. Who haven't you covered? And I'm like, a lot, a lot. There's a lot of characters I haven't covered, and there's a lot of characters I want to make videos for. I mean, everybody from Skybite to the aerial bots and the Combaticons, and I want to do an actual Constructicons retrospective, not just the who built them. Like I want to do a retrospective on you know the rest of the Generation One cast, and all going all the way to the end of the Generation One to some obscure characters that you don't know about. Maybe do some redos and stuff like that. So yeah, like those are the kind of things that I want to do videos for. And I still want to talk news, and I'd love to get a toy in front of me and like just like have it on camera and like kind of do a review. Like I'll just give an example. Um I got Wind Charger, and this guy's great. All right? I'm just going to say it. Like this is so cool of a like I'm like so happy that they finally made, you know, the last of the 1984 mini bots, in the deluxe scale. Like it took them like how many years? Like they went from Cliff Jumper and Earthrise to this guy. And that's how long it took to finally get like all six, which is like in a way it's like took too long, you know? Um and I did a retrospective on this guy, and he's just a great toy. And I want to take this guy and my Mirage figure, and I think it's what's Jazz and Sideswipe, and along with the Studio Series 86 Prime, and then just like make a Menasor out of it. But yeah, no, this is a great freaking figure. Um, the I ended up getting the there it is. Right on my desk. Has been sitting here waiting for me to apply it too. I just wanted to talk about the toy before I went ahead and put the label kit on it. Like I've got the Toy Hacks label sitting on my desk waiting for me to label him up and cover some of the little weird stuff about him that could use a little bit of improvement, but just the toy itself is cool. I love the fact that you can actually like tilt the head, like you actually have like this like knob in the back that allows you his head to like look. Oh, I'll see right over here. Look up and down. Like that is just so cool. And it's stuff like that makes me like appreciate that all the stuff that they've done for Transformers over the years. I ended up picking up this guy, Outback. I still got to open him, but I already have Brawn, so it's like it was a no-brainer to get Outback. And this guy was like a character who actually showed up in a couple episodes in season 3. So he's a character I probably should do a retrospective on, since I've done Gears and I've done Gears and Brawn. Yeah, I've done Gears and Brawn. So I've done him. A one of my subscribers actually sent me this guy, because I actually could not find him, at my local Target, which is actually like my local Target's actually 35 minutes away. So it takes me a little long to get there. So, just the spending of gas alone to get there just to see if he's there, but to finally get Hound, and that makes me a very happy camper. And then these two were sitting in my pre-order list for a while. Like, I pre-ordered these guys a while ago. And so I finally got Thundercracker. And literally yesterday, got this guy. Megatron. Finally got this Megatron. I've been waiting. Literally. And I just got him yesterday. So, and just to find, just to get this guy is like, I've just been waiting a long time. Like, it sucks when you pre-order figures and they don't show up when, like some people get it like right when the wave is supposed to drop, and then you don't get yours for like 3 or 4 months. So, yeah, just kind of like one of those things. And I also got Quick Strike. I had to. Do you guys know that for being a G1 guy, I love Beast Wars? Like, I wouldn't be RodimusPrimal if I didn't love Beast Wars. It's just kind of one of those things. So, I finally got Quick Strike, and it's going to be awesome to have like images of him with that Silverbolt figure. And I got the second, Combaticon. So I got Blast Off. I have Vortex in the box, and I have Blast Off now. And I still got to get Brawl. And I know that Swindle and Onslaught are coming. So, but I, at least got to be able to get Brawl, because I heard like a lot of good things about that Brawl figure. So I figured I would talk about the figures that I get. But just when you have like characters like this, and they finally come out, and you finally get it in hand, and you're like, man, this is actually a really good toy. Like, can't say enough good things. And it's for a character who does not get a lot of speaking lines, and no one really knows much about him, except for if you watch my retrospective on the character, right? Which is why I need to make more retrospectives, right? I need to make more retrospectives, and keep my mind focused, despite all the stuff going on in my family, and we're all gathering together to make sure my mom is okay. So, but it'll be, I'm sure she'll make it through. I'm sure of it. So, anyhow, let's talk about. Yeah, actually, I do know about the upgrade kits. I want to pick up a lot of DNA kits, but they're really um they're really expensive. You know what I mean? It's like $30 a kit, for a DNA kit, and it has a lot of cool stuff. Like, I want to get the ones for the Constructicons. Like, I'm actually really want to get myself the Constructicon kits, because like they add, like, for Bone Crusher, they actually make his arms the right length, that they don't look too short. And the same thing for Scavenger, and they add things to the different Constructicons that were like, you feel like they should have been there to begin with. So like Bone Crusher gets like the biggest upgrade out of the DNA kit. So that's the set that I want to pick up. But anyway, let me just drink some water, because like, man, I'm talking and talking and talking. For Dark of the Moon Prime, I wonder how well that figure is. Oh, speaking of other upgrade kits, I actually got for my Studio Series 86 Buzzworthy version of Cup and my Legacy Sandstorm, I ended up buying those casted heads that you can buy on eBay, and it gives, Sandstorm the cartoon face, and it gives Cup a much better face, and I'm probably going to take some images of them soon and put them on my social media so you can actually see like a really good, look. And they're sitting on the shelf. You can actually see them. They're over there. They're over there on the shelf. So you can kind of see I got Grimlock with his sword up there, and I got Cosmos sitting up on top of Skyfire, and Those the Seekers are probably going to end up getting replaced, but it is what it is. So let's talk some Transformers news again, shall we? So let's take a look at the new Studio Series wave of figures. And some of it is a little bit of a retread, and some of it has been, what people have been waiting for. We've got the Transformers 1 Thundercracker. Thundercracker has been getting a lot of love lately. A lot of love. The only thing I will say, though, is that Thundercracker himself, like, he... I think that there's too many Thundercracker figures getting released in a short amount of time. What's going on, Raz? You had the War for Cybertron figure that I'm still seeing the War for Cybertron figure on the shelf for Thundercracker. Obviously the Studio Series 86 Thundercracker, which I just recently got. Now you've got this Thundercracker, and he's not a bad character, and I know that he's getting a lot of love in the Skybound comics too, which I'm gonna be honest with you is a little weird with him with an Autobot symbol, but I think it's a temporary thing. And I have to fix up my Thundercracker t-shirt design. Like if you go on my TeePublic store, I have a Starscream, a Slipstream, and a Skywarp one, and I had a Thundercracker one on there, but I've got to fix it up. There's a couple things I've got to change on it, and I might actually release a version with an Autobot symbol on it too, just for people who are like, yeah, I want one with an Autobot symbol instead of just a Decepticon symbol. So, but that's the thing. It's like, if you have the Gamer Edition, it's like, do you really want the Transformers 1 version? Because it's almost the same, unless you're a Seeker collector, right? So, but still, the figure looks cool. Same thing with this Soundwave. Looks good, right? And the alt mode is obviously based on Transformers 1, which is also based on the alternate mode that they created for the Bumblebee movie. So in a way, this is like Bumblebee movie Soundwave again. So yeah, a flying tape recorder. They're reissuing Scourge from Studio Series, which is great for people who like Transformers Rise of the Beasts. And then there's this Evasion Mode Prime. And I kind of like them, and I kind of don't. I'm not a live action movie guy, so for me that's a nah. Let people who like the live action films go for it. And this Bumblebee figure looks good too, for people who like that version of Bumblebee. I don't collect movie Transformers, so it's just not my thing. So is there, at least give a purpose to Soundwave Jet? Well, it's just a Cybertronian flying mode. That's all that it is. So it's not meant to be anything more than that. And so I guess you could still try to transform it into a pseudo cassette player. But yeah, he's basically he's kind of a flying cassette player. That's what he is, right? So, and I mean, he did have this mode in the movie. So they do transform. So, and that's kind of cool. But let's also talk about the listings. And before I get into those listings, let's get into the first 2027 listings that have shown up. And I'm missing out on movie designs? Not really. I don't like the live action designs. I don't. I don't. I've never liked the live action movie designs. Like, I really don't like the live action movie designs at all. Like, whatsoever. So, like, I don't have a single... I think the only Transformer that I still have... Like, I only got one because I think I don't know if it was gifted to me or something, but movie Barricade. Like, 2007 movie Barricade with his chest, the Frenzy figure comes out of. But yeah. Oh yeah, when it turns into a cassette player and flies away. So, But I mean, for the people who like the live action movie designs, like that's your thing. Anyway, let's look into 2027, and there's going to be an A level deluxe Transformers 5 Bumblebee, which is what we saw. A Dreamwave Optimus Prime. So I think that the actually no, this is a different Bumblebee. So that might be a Bumblebee that comes apart. And yeah, so the Dreamwave Optimus Prime, I'm thinking that's going to be War Within Optimus, which would be kind of cool. Not going to lie. I'm glad they're doing a 86 Alicon, like people who couldn't get it during Earthrise. I think it's going to be the same figure, just reissued. 86 Wheelie means that if you did not pick up the retro version, which is more toy colored, this will be more G1 cartoon colored. So if you want to upgrade into a different Wheelie figure and check out my Wheelie retrospective, go for it, right? Red Alert is probably going to be the Kingdom figure, but with a more G1 cartoon accurate deco. Red Alert, interestingly enough, was not in the finished film for the 1986 film, but he was in the storyboards in a deleted scene. So when Ultra Magnus is supposed to roll, like right after the Dinobots fight Devastator, Ultra Magnus is supposed to wheel inside of Autobot City as Devastator breaks in, and then Ultra Magnus, comes in and Autobots roll off of him, Trax, Sideswipe, and Red Alert. They transform into robot mode. Ultra Magnus transforms into robot mode, and they start firing missiles at Devastator, which cause him to transform back into the Constructicons. They open fire, and Red Alert is one of the casualties right after that. And this battle takes place as Optimus Prime is barreling through Decepticons to get to Megatron. So that is what that was the battle that was supposed to happen in the 86 film and was supposed to be Red Alert's end. So I think that's what they're doing here. They're going to give us a Red Alert in a cartoon accurate deco. A Transformers 1 Shockwave is great. I loved his character in the movie. Movie 1 Jazz, I'm wondering if that's a redo or if they're just going to reissue the first Studio Series figure. Devastation Goldfire is probably a retool of that Devastation Bumblebee figure that they have out now. Deluxe Devastation Nemesis Prime, again, a redeco of the Devastation Optimus. Now, the one that of this whole set of deluxes, Nautica, if she looks good, I'll pick her up, and Wheelie, I'd pick him up. Those would be the ones that I would go for myself personally. Then Voyagers, you've got 86 Quintesson Judge, which is great for anybody that missed out on the Earthrise figure. I think they're just going to reissue it, unless I'm wrong. So I think that's what they're going to do there. Movie 1 Ironhide and Movie 1 Ratchet, I don't know if they're reissues or if they're redos. And I think that they're probably going to be reissues, personally speaking. Drift, I think, is a great, if it's going to be IDW Drift, that'll be pretty cool. The white robot, but I'm wondering if they'll do the Decepticon deco more, or it'll be more like the Autobot deco, but we'll see. Then you've got Marvel Soundwave. All right. I want to get Studio Series 86 Soundwave, and they're going to recolor this guy purple and probably give him the Jose Delbo mouth. Well, that'll be cool, but I want the 86 one first because he's not easy to get. But it's going to be really cool to see that. IDW Fortress Maximus. Okay. All right. That'd be kind of neat. I wonder if it's going to be a new mold or if it's going to be a retool. We'll see. They're going to do a 86 Swoop, which is a reissue of what came before. Then you've got 86. Sleep Optimus. They're literally going to call him Sleep Optimus. It's just going to be an all grayed out Prime because he's dead. He's dead, Jim. Which is actually is something the Rekar said. Return of Optimus Prime. This is cool. Leader Megatron and Movie 1 Optimus. And then you've got a Generation Studio Series Autobot cassette pack, which means that if you missed out on Twincast and you did pick up Studio Series 86 Blaster and you want to get the rest of the cassettes, this is probably going to be like a cassette pack with all 4 cassettes in one. I wouldn't be surprised if they do it that way. And then for other listings, they're going to call the next toy line Age of Evolution, which means they're going to do a lot of non-G1 characters, which I'm okay with. You may add some G1 in the mix and, you've got me, but there may be some characters that I'm going to be excited for. So let's take a look. A deluxe Barricade. What basis of the toy is that character? Then we'll see. Collapse, don't know what that is, but Nightbird. All right, you've got my attention. What does this Nightbird look like? What does she transform into? And does she look like the Generation 1 cartoon? More so than that Chromia retool. We'll see. Voyager G2 Megatron. Will it be a brand new mold? Please let this Megatron be a brand new mold. And we'll see. Because I don't want the Earthrise mold again, obviously. And the Studio Series 86 Megatron does not match the aesthetic for G2 Megatron. Should be like a tank that looks like this on his chest. So we'll see. An animated Slipstream. You've got my attention. But how close to animated and how much of Generations are you going with? Like, that's the question. Because the Slipstream figure that we got, I'm not the biggest fan, even with all the upgrade kits that I've added to it. The mold works great as Windblade, but doesn't work great as Slipstream. So, it's just my opinion. But an animated Lugnut? Alright. I'm hoping this figure is good, because Lugnut is a character I've wanted them to do. Energon Scorponok. I have no connection. I liked the storyline to be, I like the storyline what they did with the character in Energon, despite the Energon not being a great show. But I wouldn't collect another Energon Scorponok. I'm happy with the Beast Wars and G1 Scorponok. So, just my opinion. And I probably should do a Scorponok retrospective when this toy comes out, right? Same thing with Tidal Wave, because they're going to do an Energon Tidal Wave, which means it's going to be the same command. Oh, it's going to be the Titan figure, but in Energon colors. Cool. Very, very cool. And then you got this Walmart capsule, and I'm curious as to what this... I wonder what this is going to be. Because you got Rook, Viper, Scoop / Skyfire. Interesting using that name. Snarl, and then a multi-pack. Who? Is this going to be Rook like the... Are they going to do... Like, which version of the character name Rook? Is this going to be... Oh, this Rook might be a Windcharger redeco. Watch my retrospective on Windcharger and you'll know what I'm talking about. Viper might be a Power Glide redeco. I don't think they're going with the Combiner Wars version of Rook. I think Viper is going to be the Power Glide G.I. Joe color. Oh, that actually might make sense. They might go for a G.I. Joe style crossover. Yeah, no, I'm not going with combiner. I don't think they're going to be combiner wars. I think this is going to be that this Rook is going to be the Wind Charger redeco. You know, it's not going to like that's actually the first time they ever used the name Rook was used for a transformer. So, but yeah, Viper is probably the Power Glide redeco. Scoop may be, huh? Makes you wonder, right? Like what could it be? And the last little bit of Transformers news that I'm gonna talk about here is this very cool figure that I never, I don't really collect the AMK Pro figures, but man, this is such a cool idea. This is something actually that I've wanted, or in part that I've wanted them to do for a long time. You've got this new Bumblebee figure for the that Yolopark is doing. It's an officially licensed transformer, but it doesn't transform. So it's an action figure Bumblebee that comes with Spike. I don't really care if I don't really care if to get the Bumblebee figure. It's the Spike figure that I want. I want them to do a Spike, a Sparkplug, a Dr. Arkaville, Carly, Chip, give us heck, a Sorry from Animated, and you know different characters from the car, a Marissa Fairborn, that go into scale with these figures. Like that's what I've wanted them to do for like a bit, and they just have not done so. And here Yolopark is doing something with Spike to go with their Bumblebee figure. So it kind of makes me wonder. And then here is the scaling for it. So that's actually very cool. Yeah, if they do an Autobot X, they should do an Autobot X figure. But I'm curious. It doesn't say how tall the Yolopark figures are. Like I don't know how big they are, because here you're going to spend $50 for a Bumblebee action figure that doesn't transform into anything, but he comes with a Spike figure that maybe might be able to go into scale with your generation stuff, and it looks cool. 16 centimeter model kits. So what are we looking at? 16 centimeters? What are we looking at here? Darn it, my thing doesn't, it only has feet. 16 centimeters is is how tall this Bumblebee figure is. So, what fun. Anyone got a conversion to that? 16 centimeters, 2 inches. Okay, 6 inches. So, how tall is so the Bumblebee figure is actually taller than this Wind Charger. So the Spike figure will, it's not worth the price. Okay, 6.25 inches. It's kind of too tall. Yeah, it's kind of too tall. At least for my own collection, anyway. They are going to reissue Armada Prime for people who want the Armada Jetfire. So go for it. I have affiliate links, I know, in my description. So, you know. Also, they're going to be reissuing Shattered Glass Starscream and Runabout, apparently. The Power of the Primes, Throne of the Primes figure. And they're talking about reissuing that Greenlight figure. So if you want to do the Elita 1 combiner and you missed out on Greenlight and you don't want to spend like $400 for her, you can get her. But I'm all right without that. So, but that's a lot of Transformers stuff. I don't know if you guys have been watching the um like if you guys have been watching the um not re watching, I'm sorry, if you've been reading the Skybound comics have been great. But there's that controversial issue that happened, I think it was issue 30, and I have not read it, but everyone posted the spoiler for it with Elita 1. And I saw it and I have thoughts about it, but I'm kind of like I'm on the fence about whether or not I like it or not, you know? So you're saying Alpha Bravo makes a return, which is something. Yeah, I've got to read the I got to catch up. I think I'm like about 3 or 4 issues behind right now. So, and the RC Magnus thing. So, all right, let me actually talk about this then, since you guys want to know. Um, Elita 1 in issue 30 had gotten the matrix of leadership from Optimus and became Elita Prime, which I'm all right with it for a temporary thing. I think, and I'm hoping it's going to be a temporary thing, you know? Like, I think what's going to happen is that the matrix within her chest is going to start influencing her attitude. You know what I'm saying? Because here's what, in my opinion, RC earned to parallel her powers with Ultra Magnus. You know, RC as a warrior, as a compassionate Autobot, as a caring one. So RC gets the upgrade and Ultra Magnus doesn't lose his. So he gave her his power, but both of them hold the rank and the power of Magnus, right? That's what the Skybound comics did. But the parallel is on Elita 1. So like the matrix of leadership can only be in one being, right? So Optimus Prime could take the matrix and place it into the next Autobot leader, and the next Autobot leader takes it on. And then if he takes it back, he has that power. So only one can have that power. Ultra Magnus can share it. But RC earned it. Elita 1 didn't earn it, right? So she's being forcibly, you want to fight me? You don't want to come to an agreement with me? Fine. You take on the responsibility. And I think that's what Skybound is doing here. So a lot of people are like, I don't like this. I don't like the idea of turning Elita 1 into a prime. Well, I think what they're going for here is that Elita 1 is going to, Elita 1 is going to go through some changes over the next couple of issues where she comes to the realization like, man, you bore all that responsibility, Optimus. You know what? You take it. I can't do it. Whereas RC earns her spot as as a Magnus. You know what I mean? And I think that's a parallel between the two characters. I think what they're going for here is that one character earned her spot, earned her, a promotion. She got a promotion and she's doing well. And the other one was like given it and really shouldn't have had it. And she's going to be the prime on Cybertron, and it's almost going to get to the point where it's like, because if you actually look at what's going on in the previews, you almost feel like Elita 1, like, she's going to have to go through some changes over this couple of issues, and they're all going to look at her and go, man, you really aren't fit for this commander gig, So anybody who has issues, a problem with Elita getting the prime spot, take into consideration that it's most likely temporary. And why it's temporary, and why storyline wise I think that they're doing something here that's different. And if you go with that idea, then it could work. But I don't know if that's going to be the outcome. Like, I don't necessarily think that that's going to be the outcome of this. So, the idea of Elita 1 being a prime, I think works as a temporary thing. Here's my thing. I want Hot Rod to become prime. I want Rodimus Prime to be the leader. I want to see Rodimus Prime leading the Autobots again. And that would be so cool. And I think Elita 1 being a temporary prime is fine. For just a temporary thing. Whereas, like, again, Ultra Magnus is still Ultra Magnus. He still has the powers of being Ultra Magnus in the Skybound universe. And then RC also shares that power. So, like, the two of them, parallel Optimus and Elita in a way. And then Elita 1 really shouldn't be prime, but Optimus is trying to say to her, hey, Elita, will you listen to me? We should be protecting these little beings called humans. We should protect Cybertron, yes, but our war spilled onto Earth, too. We step on these creatures and they die. Like, don't you care? And not to mention that Sparkplug is in the Matrix. So that means that Elita 1 is going to probably start seeing things through Sparkplug's eyes. And Optimus's eyes. And Sentinel Prime's eyes. And whatever Prime came before her. Now, on the Megatron side, I've heard some things. I don't know things yet. Because, again, I'm a couple of issues behind, but everybody gave the spoiler. So that's my helicopter look at the Elita and RC thing in the Skybound comics. So if you can take that into consideration, maybe think of it that way. All right? Oh, one more bit of Transformers news that I did not talk about. And I'm going to find the image in a moment so I can bring it up. So, yeah, I want to talk about this. I did hear about the Fallen and him having a conversation with Megatron himself. Yeah, I'm back. I'm going over the live stream for Transformers news today. And, oh, that's right. Exhaust and Bug Bite, which probably means it's going to be the Studio Series 86 Bumblebee figure as Bug Bite. And they're probably just going to reissue that Exhaust figure. Also, there's a... yeah, G2 Wild Rider will show up. I see Wild Riders. Okay, a lot of cool stuff that I missed on the... like, there's so many listings that they found, and I think it's just like, with all those listings for next year... no, there's two bits of Transformers news that I need to talk about. Okay, first bit of Transformers news. Okay. This bit. Right here. So, Icons on Earth did a documentary series on the making of some Transformers movies. And I have been saying for a while that Lorenzo di Bonaventura has been really, really instrumental in hurting Transformers for live action films. I'm going to tell you this. I don't like and haven't liked the live action films as a general whole. I find a lot of it's a little headache inducing, especially the ones directed by Bay. The Bumblebee movie was a breath of fresh air, but it was like you got a taste of what a G1 style movie on Cybertron could be, and then you got a pretty decent story. And I liked the robot action in that movie, but it was like I wanted to see more Transformers action. And then Rise of the Beast was supposed to be Bumblebee 2, but it turned out to just be shoehorning the 7th live action Transformers movie into one continuity because of this guy, Lorenzo di Bonaventura. Because he wanted more Bay and pushed for more Bay stuff in the films. And yeah, that didn't happen the way that it was supposed to happen. So all of this stuff that you're reading here on this whole little blurb kind of really paints him in a bad light. But guess what? He's still producing the next Transformers movie. And apparently Bay is coming back. I'm tired, guys. I'm really tired. I really wanted a certain Transformers movie that, you know, it respected the source material. And I'm just never going to get it. So, yeah. You know, Transformers 1 was a great movie, but not everybody went to go see it because it was a cartoon. You know, and people were transformed out. It was only a year after the one. Yeah, I'm tired. But speaking of good Transformers movies, but it bombed at the box office. The Transformers, the movie, the ultimate visual hardcover book, is going to be a book that comes out on October 27th. And Hasbro, they have the guy who did this book, who is a super Transformers fan, and he also went directly with Hasbro with it. He has done previous books for other big production movies before, so it's kind of like the ultimate visual history books of certain movies or certain directors or things of that nature. And so Hasbro actually reached out to me, asking me to, have a conversation with this guy. And he actually got a lot of information from Flint Dille, and he got a lot of information from Floro Derry, and from a bunch of different people involved, Nelson Shin, and a bunch of different people involved in the making of the original 1986 Transformers the movie. And Hasbro said to him, you need to get some fan input because, man, the fans know stuff. Here's RodimusPrimal, and a couple of other different people involved, like other fan creators and stuff. I don't know who else he reached out to, but I had a good 3-hour conversation with this guy. And really gave him a lot of insight into things about the movie, and we just nerded out for 3 hours, just as much as like I said on a live stream with you guys. It's kind of how like having a conversation with another Transformers nerd was. And but he's he's done some other books before, so I think that this is probably something that's going to be really special when it comes out, and I'm hoping that everything that comes out in that book is worth, just for what they're doing. And they're using that cover, the original 86 cover. So I'm happy about that. That I got to be a part of, at least be able to give some fan input, So yeah, I know a lot of people are probably mad about this. I still see you guys talking about that and what have you. So let's actually look at some of the comments, right? The next Transformers movie should only be on Cybertron. I don't know about that. So, like, the last Transformers movie was what, Rise of the Beasts? That was live action. And that was how many years ago? And then you had Transformers 1. So, we're looking at now, what, 2-3 years ago? So maybe people would be more warmed up to the idea of coming back to Transformers in the movies. So, all right. For like when Transformers 1 came out, like it's a decent movie, right? It's a pretty decent movie. It's very, very fun. Some people say, I've heard people say like, oh no, I loved it. I saw it like 100 times, and that's great. I liked it. I did like it. There are continuity things that I wish that were done differently, but it was a good story. Yeah, I wish that they were more based upon the Generation 1 storylines and stuff, but and if it was more successful, they would have made a Transformers 2, and they would have made a sequels to that. Some people will not necessarily go to a movie if it's like if it doesn't look fun or interesting or worth their time. And a lot of people said like they saw the trailer and they were immediately turned off to Transformers 1 and they didn't care about whether or not the movie was good. The trailer didn't look good, so the movie was not going to be watched. That sucks. That really, 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 really sucks. So, and Transformers 1 deserved a little bit better for being a better Transformers movie, but a lot of people probably didn't go see it because it was an animated movie either. And some people that were not like enticed to go see it after seeing the trailers. So, I really, really don't like. Okay, there are a couple things that I really don't like about the newer lore. Like, I don't necessarily like the newer lore. Um, in particular, like here's my issue. Okay, so you've got the 13 primes, right? Should the 13 prime? Who's the 13th prime? And how many primes are before Optimus? And should it be a lineage? Or should it just be, here's 13, and the next prime is Optimus? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, the whole idea behind Optimus Prime and there being a lineage, there were primes before him. It's kind of like the main leader of the Autobots is the prime, right? So Optimus Prime, Rodimus Prime. And if Optimus Prime is one of the 13, then it doesn't work. Just doesn't work. So what about, Sentinel Prime is a prime, so it's just like too many, like, I don't mind the idea behind there being 13 original Transformers. I don't necessarily think that all original 13 Transformers should be primes. So, like, it just, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, it's supposed to be a lineage, you know? And, like, the Matrix Bearer, like, you are now, Prima Prime. You are now, Sentinel Prime. You are now Optimus Prime. You are now Rodimus Prime. You know what I'm saying? Like, the Matrix moves on to the next leader, and it's a lineage. But when you go, oh, well, all the way back, you had 13 original Transformers. All 13 are now primes. Come on. And then the way the Align continuity did it, where basically the 13th prime was resurrected and now it's Optimus. I hate that. I don't like that lore. Like, that's the Align continuity's version of that storyline just doesn't work for me. I just don't like the idea behind Optimus Prime himself being one of the original 13. It just does not work. So, yeah. And, yeah, the Transformers 1 was a great movie, and it's just bummed there wasn't a sequel, I agree. So, and I again, so I didn't mind the original 13 being primes, but yes, there should be a lineage, perhaps Prime Lord leaders. Yeah, it kind of makes sense that way. And because the idea is like, well, why do Transformers have beast modes? Why do Transformers have small Transformers? Why do Transformers have this? And that was kind of the idea behind the 13, is like each of them are a progenitor of a certain aspect that's in other Transformers. Like, that was kind of the idea, but how it was implemented, in my opinion, was done poorly. So, and I understand their reasoning behind it. So, oh, that's right. I almost forgot. I have to make my hotel reservation for TFCon in Orlando. So I live close enough that I can drive down to Orlando and here in Florida. So I will absolutely, I mean, it's like an hour, a little over an hour away. So I will absolutely, make my hotel reservation to go to TFCon in Orlando. I'm going to hope to try and see if I can organize a YouTubers panel. And maybe I might be able to get the guy who's doing the visual history hardcover book. I'm going to try and see. I'll see. I'll see what I can do. I want to do something cool at the convention. And I want to try and see if I can bring my kids to it too, because they're always asking like, when can we go to a convention and stuff like that. So, um, I want to go to a TFCon in Orlando. Yeah, it's. I will tell you this much: if it's at the same convention center that it was before in Orlando, I will be very happy to it be there because that hotel is awesome. So, yeah. Want to go to. So we don't have a proper origin for Titan-sized Cybertronians yet. Yeah, that's that's the whole problem with that. So, I'm hoping I see if you guys are who are watching and you live in you live at least in the area, or if you're going to travel down to TFCon in Orlando, that's in October. So, I will absolutely try to make it to that one. I'm hoping that some of the Beast Wars actors go and some of the G1 actors go, you know, to it because we're looking at what the 40th anniversary for the 1986 movie, and we are also looking at the 30th anniversary for Beast Wars. Yeah, 30th anniversary for Beast Wars for 1986. 1996. Yeah, 1996. Beast Wars was like, I'm gonna say this much: like, there's a reason why Beast Wars. Like, I'm always gonna love Generation One. What's going on, Bigum? Um, There's a reason why Generation One is my favorite, but Beast Wars is like here. you know, I love Beast Wars. Beast Wars is a great show. Um, it will not be as big as MegaCon. No, no. Um, I need to try to make sure I make it to MegaCon in next year, which will be in May instead of March. So, yeah. Yeah, I got to try to see it, make sure if I can make it to MegaCon in Orlando. It's like right across the street from Epic Universe. And the reason I like the 13 Primes is if they were progenitors of types of Transformers. See, I don't mind that aspect of them. I don't necessarily like the idea of them being primes. Like maybe they could be named like Vector Prime, Solus Prime, but like it shouldn't be Megatronus Prime. It should be just like, okay, the idea was is that his name was forgotten because he was the Fallen, right? So he was supposed to always just be called the Fallen because no one remembered his name. And then once they went, oh, it's Megatronus. Well, that's just basically making it Optimus, or basically making it Megatron, right? So, but Alpha Trion is not named Prime. Liege Maximo is not named Prime, and there was no Quintus, which I don't like the idea behind Quintus. I don't like the idea behind the Quintessons being a creation of one of the original 13 Transformers, because the Quintessons themselves were another race of beings. And their whole idea behind them was very Lovecraftian, if you will. So, like, taking that aspect away from them takes too much of what those characters are meant to be. So, like, I don't mind. Maybe it's like I don't mind Quintus Prime being like, I don't know, maybe like it'd be something that the Quintessons themselves had a part in. I don't know. So, there's a lot of different lore out there that you can find that would explain things differently. So, yeah, they're not Cybertronian in nature. Has Hasbro Marvel tried to make an official canon Transformers instead of different continuities? Not really. Like, that's the thing. Like, the Align continuity was supposed to be that. And they spent a lot of money on the Binder of Revelation, and they kept adding things and sticking things in and shoehorning things in places. Um, it was what's it called? like they originally, like, there was the cartoon and the comic book. Those were the two continuities. You had the G1 Marvel comic and you had the G1 cartoon. And from those two were were splinters. The splinters, you had the UK comics, which the UK comics has its own timeline, future timeline that gets kind of erased but kind of pushed to the side. And so the UK comics works and doesn't work, but it's still all in the confines of the US Marvel comic. And then you have the G1 cartoon, which ends with the rebirth, but the G1 cartoon, if you take off the rebirth, the Japanese continue on with Headmasters, Master Force, Victory, Zone, Battle Stars, and all that kind of stuff, and their own version of G2, and all that stuff. And that was just the two continuities. And then within that Japanese continuity, somewhere the Car Robots fits in, and Beast Wars the Second and Beast Wars Neo fits in. And that's all Generation 1 Japanese version of the Splinter of the Timeline. And then you have, in the American continuity, though, they went, oh, Robots in Disguise is its own thing. Okay, well, that doesn't really work, but I guess it just works the way that you want it to. And then the Unicron trilogy was like this brand new reboot of the franchise, right? And then from starting with Armada and ending with Cybertron, and then going with almost every Transformers series since, you had nothing but like Final Fantasy Transformers. And what I mean by that is that, like, this Transformers continuity is just its own timeline. Like, Final Fantasy IV and Final Fantasy VI are not connected to one another at all. They're not in the same world. So, you go to the next Final Fantasy and it's all these new characters. The only thing is that every Transformers series must have an Optimus, must have a Megatron. And because of that, it's not really like Final Fantasy, because it's just a reboot. And it's a reboot in a different way. So it's a different version of Optimus, a different version of Megatron, instead of brand new Autobot leader, brand new Decepticon leader. See, at least in Japan, they did that, right? In Japan, you had Transformers Victory. Instead of Optimus Prime and Megatron, you had Starsaber and Deathsaurus. So it's two different Transformers leaders, whole different team of Autobots, whole different team of Decepticons. And it was awesome. And you don't necessarily need to have that. Hasbro goes, we can't do that. You must have Optimus Prime on the toy shelf. You must have Megatron. So, the Align continuity was their attempt at rebooting the franchise with this whole new, brand new way of looking at the storylines moving forward. The problem was they had the War for Cybertron game, Transformers Prime, and Robots in Disguise. And Robots, and then of course you had Rescue Bots. And all four producers of the video games, and then of course, then you had the Binder of Revelation. All of that was, the Binder of Revelation was supposed to tie it all together. The problem is that not a single one of them actually truly matches what the Binder of Revelation was supposed to do. It was supposed to create this, like, foundation of Transformers, right? And this is where the Transformers come from. And this is who created this one. This is all that. And then the War for Cybertron video game was supposed to be like the foundation for it, the media. And then you had the comic books which attached to it. And then you had the Transformers Prime cartoon. Well, the Transformers Prime cartoon, the producers literally turned and looked at Hasbro and says, yeah, your Binder of Revelation, shove it. We'll do it our own way. You're going to spend millions of dollars for us to do it our way. And you'll like it. And so things in Transformers Prime, this is not to say that Transformers Prime is a bad cartoon. This is not what I'm saying here. But the people who made Transformers Prime blew the budget. They ignored what Hasbro wanted to do with storytelling for the characters, and they did their own thing. This is the reason why Trypticon was not the nemesis, or he was, but he wasn't. But he was, but he wasn't. Like, it doesn't make sense because at the end of, what was it, War for Cybertron, or was it Fall of Cybertron, where they turned Trypticon into the nemesis, right? And that whole episode where Megatron goes to turn, get the nemesis back up and running with Dark Energon, and it comes alive. The revelation was supposed to be that it was Trypticon. Well, guess what? Didn't happen. Because the producers of the show said, yeah, we are not tying this to another piece of media. Screw you. We're doing it our own way. Now, I understand that mindset of let us tell our story our own way. I get that. But there was a lot of promises out of Transformers Prime that were like, it wasn't so much that it was dumb. It was that it was already a story bit that they made out of the video games. The video games did that. So, if you like War and Fall for Cybertron, you wanted to know. So you're telling me that this Decepticon ship, they're going to turn it back alive, and it's going to become alive, it's going to become Trypticon? We're going to see Trypticon in Transformers Prime? No? Oh. Okay. No, what did we get? We got an entire second season that was a MacGuffin hunt. You literally went all these episodes going from here to place to place to place to place to place to get this ancient artifact, to get this other ancient artifact, to get this another ancient artifact. And it was a treasure hunt season. And then the third season, they couldn't figure out what they wanted to do. And it turned out they went with Beast Hunters. And as cool as the idea behind, Predaking as one of the Predacons was, it was kind of, an interesting way to use that character's name. It is what it is. But they could have done more with beasts. Like, they really could have. Like, there was only 3. And it was only 3 because they had one throughout the entirety of the season. So it was Beast Hunters was one beast. Until the movie that they made, the Predacons Rising, right? So, and then Breakdown. Okay, so that's another thing. Transformers Prime blew the budget. You know how they blew the budget? High caliber actors to play the voice of a cartoon character. So Breakdown was too expensive. And when they couldn't afford to pay him anymore, they killed his character off. Very, very, very... the way they killed him was like... It was just like... Obviously, it was a shock. So... And then you had... what's his name? Tony Todd, who did Dreadwing, which was a great character. I loved Dreadwing's character, by the way. I really did. So, but yeah, Tony Todd as Dreadwing was great. He was a great character. Loved this character. But we already know that Skyquake and Dreadwing were supposed to be Thundercracker and Skywarp. They were supposed to be, but they made them their own characters, and it wasn't a bad thing. I wish Skyquake was in more episodes before getting killed off. And, it would have been great to have another character, another Decepticon Jet, to almost the loyal one versus the, thank you. The loyal one versus the, the betrayer with Starscream. And so, like, Transformers Prime was an enjoyable cartoon, but I don't place it as high as other Transformers series, Oh yeah, and then Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Cliffjumper. And they show off like, hey, guys, we got The Rock to play Cliffjumper. Yeah, he's gonna die quick. Tony Todd was great, man. Rest in peace. He was such a great actor. He was such a great actor in all the parts that he played, man. So, um, but no, Transformers Prime. I again, this is not me trying to knock the cartoon as a whole. You know, it was more so about the idea that it was supposed to be part of the aligned continuity, but it just did not mesh because the creators of each of the pieces of media couldn't connect the continuity together. And there wasn't somebody to turn around and say, yeah, this is, we're going to connect it together. And that was the problem. Because that's what Hasbro was trying to do. They were trying to make, you know, they were trying to make one single moving forward continuity. And so Robots in Disguise 2015 is the continuation, and it has one of the same producers from Prime, but it wasn't the same ones. And also Transformers Prime was super expensive. The animation that they used was very expensive at the time, very, much the same way. So there's that. Personally speaking, Transformers Prime ranks... If you were to say what Transformers cartoons are good and enjoyable, and you can watch them and they're fun to watch, and you can go back to them and watch them again, I'm gonna put G1 on that pedestal. I'm gonna put Beast Wars on that pedestal too. I like, if I was to place Transformers Prime and Transformers Animated, I'm gonna place Animated higher. But I'm going to say, like, both cartoons are good. I think both are overrated. But they're both enjoyable. Both Animated and Prime. It's kind of funny. I rewatched a lot of Cybertron during one of my last retrospectives. I think it was for... Which character was it for? I had to, I went back and I rewatched Transformers Cybertron, and I was actually really, 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 really surprised how Cybertron was actually a really fun show as a whole. Armada has a good ending, but the beginning is like... My same problem with Transformers Prime Season 2, with it being a MacGuffin hunt. Like, we're after this artifact, we're after that artifact, we're after this artifact, we're after that artifact. Transformers Armada, the first, half, is the mini-con hunt. We're out to go catch Pokemon. Transformers Pokemon. Right? All these little Transformers that we're not going to have them fight each other. They're going to attach to us and we can fight each other. But that's basically what it was. And then the second half of Armada was actually an enjoyable show, because the storyline was more about the fight between the Autobots and Decepticons, going back to Cybertron and having the threat of Unicron attacking and stuff. So, Armada in and of itself, the second half was a lot better. Energon, bad show. Bad show. But the first, 10, 15 episodes of Energon had a pretty decent story. I'll give an example. Demolisher is one of my favorite Unicron trilogy characters. He is loyal to Megatron. He turns into a tank, and he's kind of a goofball a little bit in Armada. But then, what happened to the kids? I ate them, and they were quite tasty too. I love that line delivery. That's I love that character. And then in Energon, he has this arc because he is still the Decepticon, but he doesn't want to. Yeah, I can't stand Kicker either. He doesn't want, he's like, the Decepticon symbol meant so much to me. And then Megatron returns and he looks at Megatron and just kind of goes, you know what? Yep, I'm going back. That was like so good storytelling. A Decepticon who kind of turned good, but he went back to being bad. Like, it was much better with Demolisher than it was, in my opinion, and I know people are going to get angry at this, about that version of Starscream. You know what I mean? I found Demolisher's storyline in that, like, beginning of Energon, probably, I really, really enjoy that character for that reason. You know? And because I know a lot of the thing about Starscream in Armada is that he's more like the Thundercracker that we think of from Thundercracker's toy bio. Thundercracker's toy bio, where he doesn't necessarily believe in the Decepticon cause, right? So when he actually turns into a color scheme version of Thundercracker, it's right on the nose that we're getting, Armada Starscream is pretty much Thundercracker, right? So, but anyhow, yeah, no, Energon in and of itself with Kicker, terrible show. Some people really dug it, and some people dug the toys, and I'm glad that they're kind of come out with some stuff next year. But Cybertron was actually enjoyable, and it feels a little removed from actually. Yeah, it feels a little removed from what's it called? It feels removed from Armada and Energon. And that's because it was kind of produced that way. But in Hasbro's eyes, it's still just the third in the Unicron trilogy. So, Starscream had what, like, some people really, really, really dug his character arc. So, but would I like to see Hasbro advance the storyline beyond Optimus Megatron and go for, like, the future, like 3 or 4 primes after Rodimus? Okay, you know what I really would want Hasbro to do? I want them to continue the Generation 1 cartoon where Rebirth left off. Not go back to 84. Not retread old ground. Right? No. Continue the story. Make one, timeline that finally goes forward. You have 87 characters, tons of Autobots and Decepticons that never really got much storyline. Adapt some of the Marvel US comics into a cartoon. The Matrix Quest. Make that an animated arc. Like, animate that, to a cartoon. Incorporate some of the Japanese continuity into it, but not make all their decisions canon. Hot Rod can become Rodimus Prime again, leader of the Autobots again, with the Matrix again. Optimus Prime can get an upgrade to a Power Master, and maybe even get the God Bomber or Apex Armor, Apex Bomber armor. And Optimus Prime, doesn't have the Matrix, but he's still a commander of the Autobots, but Rodimus Prime is still the leader. Bring in Starsaber, bring in some of those later characters and stuff like that. And animated, yeah, maybe something like a Target 2005, like that kind of would be kind of neat to do. But animate some of those Marvel US, or just the Marvel comics, actually incorporate that storyline into the Generation 1 cartoon. Just like how the Generation 1 cartoon, some episodes were actually adapted into, like, the Marvel UK books. So, if you there's the Dam Busters comic book, and there was a few issues of the comic books in the UK, some of the early stories where they actually took some G1 cartoon episodes and then try to incorporate it into a Marvel UK book. So, if they continued after Rebirth, where they like animated like G1, I really love that Toei style. I do. I love that, like, that 80s style 2D hand-drawn animation. You could do it with computer graphics and stuff, but that's kind of what I would want to see, you know? Because here's the thing, like, a lot of people really love the Unicron trilogy, but the Unicron trilogy has a beginning with Armada and an ending with Cybertron. And it really does feel like an ending. Like Cybertron's ending, that's one whole storyline, one continuity come to a close. Animated. Unfortunately for a lot of people, that third season left them wanting. And I wouldn't mind a fourth season of animated just to tie up animated's loose ends. You know, make the animated Transformers animated season 4 that animated fans want, and then make a continuation of Generation 1 that goes on. Because here's the thing, Generation 1 is available right now. You can go on YouTube right now and watch all 98 episodes of the original cartoon right now on YouTube. So it's not like kids don't have access to a continuing story. You know what I mean? And yeah, I would love to see Blaster versus Soundwave again. Love to. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind them going back and redoing some season 3 episodes and stuff like that. Like, or Tubi. Yeah, Tubi is another option. But like, I'm just saying YouTube in general, as a general thing. So, and yeah, the animation for War for Cybertron was great. But a lot of people, you know, the storyline itself was, it was already its own continuity, its own timeline. And I think that's where the Generation 1 fatigue came in. You want to know? I think that's why people have Generation 1 fatigue. Is because a lot of the Transformers storytelling was just constantly trying to go back and retread some old ground instead of trying to continue a storyline, you know, and go forward with the story. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing, like, you know, a mini series of episodes that take place in between season 2 and the movie. But I would really love to see them continue on, you know, and then maybe reanimate some badly animated episodes like Carnage and C Minor, or heck, Five Faces of Darkness. Right? And I know not everybody's going to agree. You know? The War for Cybertron trilogy was so slow. This war has gone on a long time. We cannot continue fighting against the Decepticons with this war, because this war has torn apart our planet. Oh man, Soundwave versus Blaster should have been more. Should have been more stories with that, right? At least we can do that with our toys. We can take our G1 Soundwave toy or Studio Series 86 Soundwave toy. Oh, speaking of Soundwave and Blaster, take a note of this shelf right here, and notice that Twincast is here. Blaster is up here. That was on purpose. Yeah, it was a Rod retelling of G1 and Beast Wars continuity. Plus, whenever there's something new with Transformers, people want them to like the G1 versions. No, see, that's not the issue. That's not the issue. The issue is, it's not so much it's not that you want something. I don't want a weird, oddball interpretation of, you know, I don't want a weird, oddball interpretation of Windcharger. I want Windcharger. You know what I mean? So, but if you want new characters, bring on those new characters. You know, I'm going to say this as someone who doesn't like the live action films. You know what 2 additions to the Transformers mythos that I think are great additions to Transformers as a franchise as a whole? 2 characters, Barricade and Blackout. And yet, Blackout only really appeared in one movie. His double named Grindor appeared in the second one. But Blackout was cool because he was supposed to be Soundwave. Like everything about Blackout in the 2007 movie was supposed to be Soundwave. He was supposed to eject Ravage, but instead he ejected Scorponok. And it was kind of the same thing with Barricade ejecting Frenzy, right? That was who the character was supposed to be. Which is why he's able to grab the computer and put his hand on it and start getting information. Because he was supposed to be Soundwave. But he's a cool character, looking character. The helicopter, and all that. And then Barricade, the idea of, all right, we wanted what we want, Prowl is an Autobot, but we wanted Cop Car to be a Decepticon. All right, I can go with that idea. Barricade's a great character, but it only made me want Prowl versus Barricade. It only made me want Blackout to get added to like other Transformers series. You know what I'm saying? When you say like, oh, I just don't want them. I want them to bring more than just Generation 1. Really what it is like, I want those new characters alongside my characters that I like and I love. And I want the characters that I like and I love to exist, and then the new ones to come in alongside. You know what I mean? If you think about it, season 3 of Generation 1 was that. You had Ultra Magnus, RC, Hot Rod, Springer, Cup, Blur. Brand new characters. Granted that you upgraded Decepticons and turned them into Galvatron and Cyclonus, Scourge, and the Sweeps. But you still had Soundwave. You still had, the Combaticons and the Stunticons. You still had the other Decepticons. You still had the other Autobots, except for the ones who died, right? So the new characters exist while the old characters exist as well. So like that's really what people really should want more out of storytelling, is like we want to add more into, instead of we want to take the existing and radically change it so that the radically changed thing is no longer the same thing. There is an old I think it's Perseus's ship. Right? Is that what no. What was the Perseus ship philosophy? Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. The ship of Theseus. I'm sorry. The ship of Theseus, a paradox concerning identity over time, questioning whether an object that had all the components replaced remains fundamentally the same object. And that's really the philosophy. If you remove everything that makes those old characters, what do you have? Do you have the same ship anymore? The ship of Theseus, if you replace the mast, if you replace the sails, you replace this, you replace that, how much of it is the same ship? You know what I mean? And it's really more so, the Theseus, the ship of Theseus paradox, really, 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 describes well the problem with all of this constant, radical change of Transformers over time, is how much of it is the same, how much of it is still the same vessel. So, and it it's a good way of looking at philosophy in a lot of ways, because that's why so many people want it to remain the same, you know, is because how much of it can you change before it's no longer the same thing anymore, you know? But if we move forward and we add to, you get more, and it's more for everybody that way. So I hope that that comes across well. So I'm not seeing many more comments coming in. And I also appreciate the thanks, the super chat for, thanks for the WC, you know, thanks for the War for Cybertron accurate speech. So okay, here's one that I see here. It says, my headcanon is that Prowl and Barricade used to be partners and are now on opposite sides. Yes. 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 In fact, all right, so I have a theory on Prowl, Barricade, and Blue Streak, and also the animated Prowl, all existing in the same universe. You ready for this one? Oh, but I'm gonna get into this. I want to answer the question. Don't want to ask too many questions, but what was Barricade in the G1 continuity? So he wasn't really in G1 continuity. He was, there was a Barricade in the Micromasters toy line. So at the tail end of Generation 1, they had there was a toy line called Micro Machines, where they had these little not little transformers, little toy cars that were super popular. You bought a pack of them and they were all these little cars. So Hasbro came up with the idea, why don't we make Micro Machines into Transformers? So they became Micro Masters. So 1989 and 1990 had these Micro Masters, Autobots and Decepticons, these little Micro Machine size cars, like literally this big, and they would transform. And that's what Micro Masters were. It was a precursor to what happened in 2002 with mini cons, but mini cons were like a whole different race, and they can attach to a transformer. But Micromasters were just Autobots and Decepticons that could transform, right? So, one of them in 1990, there was a 4-pack of race car Decepticons, and the 4 of them, one of them was named Barricade. That's where the Barricade name originally came from. The name was then reused for the torso part of the Combaticons in Transformers Energon instead of Onslaught. So instead of Onslaught, we had gotten a Barricade. Just like one of those helicopter limbs was Blackout. So that was in Transformers Energon. And they what's it called? So they took those 2 names and used them for the live action films. The helicopter being Blackout, and Barricade was not a military truck, but instead was the cop car, right? So, and I actually did a Barricade retrospective. So, in the Dreamwave comics, they, which was there in like 2002-ish, somewhere around there, there was a Micromasters miniseries, and one of the mini, one of the Micromasters was named Runner, and in the Micromaster training facility, the Decepticon training facility, he actually drove through a bunch of barricades, so they nicknamed him Barricade. So that was the reason why the G1 Micromaster was called Barricade. His real name is Runner. So when Hasbro did that pack of, and when they were doing Micromasters during the War for Cybertron trilogy, though that 4-pack of Micromasters was released in different places, but the one that was Barricade was actually called Runner in that like Micromaster set. So technically speaking, Barricade is a nickname of one of the Micromasters, but the cop car Decepticon became the de facto name that way. However, what's interesting is that I think it was either Guido Guidi or no Don. I think it was either Don Figueroa or Guido Guidi who did a. It was one of them. It was one of the well-known Transformers artists did a Generation 1 smokescreen as the Decepticon Barricade, taking the colors from the live action films and adding a little bit of purple here and there. And so basically we got a Generation 1 Decepticon cop car Barricade. And that's where that came from. And now that Barricade has been associated with a Decepticon Generation 1 character. So that is, in a nutshell, me explaining an entire retrospective for you that you probably should watch so you can get a better understanding about what I just explained to you. So, because I show it in pictures. That's the reason why I do retrospectives, is because I can show it to you in pictures. I can sit here and talk Transformers, which I've done for 2 hours, talking about a Barricade character. But anyway, my theory, which is not in that retrospective, Barricade as far as my headcanon, which again, headcanon is not really canon to anything, but whenever I make a headcanon, I always try to make a headcanon work within the universe. You know what I'm saying? Like, in my eyes, continuity is paramount. So if I'm ever going to make a character work in a time, like if I'm going to make a character or I'm going to make a storyline work in my own headcanon, it has to fit within the universe. I don't like doing the Ship of Theseus thing and changing things that don't fit. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't work. Which is why I don't like the 13 primes things. Anyway, so Barricade, Prowl, and Blue Streak come from Praxis, right? Praxis is one of the cities is a city on Cybertron. And two Praxians are Prowl and Barricade work for the Cybertronian security forces. Hence why they're cop cars, right? They're the Praxian security, on Cybertron. That's why their color schemes are the way that they are. That's why they have sirens. So Barricade and Blackout are from Praxis. And then Blue Streak is just a civilian, loves his city. And Prowl, in the beginnings of the war, left Praxis, and maybe it's because Barricade betrayed him. So Barricade betrays Prowl. Prowl joins Optimus Prime as the new lead, or is it maybe he joined Optimus Prime? Yeah, let's say he joined Sentinel Prime in the fight against Megatron, and whenever that works. Whenever Prowl and Barricade split, maybe they were partners. And, as far as like law enforcement partners. But Barricade went with the Decepticons for conquest, and Prowl went with the Autobots, right? Because let's say Prowl was always an Autobot, and Barricade just went, I don't care who I am, I'm just a Praxian, whatever. And then Barricade went with the Decepticons and went more on the evil side. And maybe Barricade didn't care that his city was destroyed. We don't know. That story hasn't been told. But what we do know is that, let's say Barricade went with Megatron and Prowl wanted to protect and serve. And then Barricade was probably with the Decepticons when they attacked Praxis. And Blue Streak survived. He was the survivor. Prowl wasn't there, but Blue Streak was there. And Blue Streak survived that Decepticon assault. So the whole city was leveled. And Blue Streak, in order for him to cope with the loss of his friends and loved ones, is a chatterbox. That's why Blue Streak talks a blue streak. You know, what he doesn't know is that his, let's say his brother, Silver Streak, survived too, but wasn't there when Praxis was attacked. So that's where Silver Streak comes from. Hence all the same body types, they all come from the city of Praxis on Cybertron. They were all manufactured to look very similar. It's kind of like Sparta. Like all Spartans wear that helmet with the big, thing, Blue Streak. And the same thing with Ironhide having that Centaurian helmet like thing. And all the Praxians have the chevron, which is where the Autobot insignia kind of is made from anyway. So that's kind of my idea of where Barricade comes from. A G1 cartoon, or a G1 cop car Decepticon that works within a G1 continuity. Could work in the cartoon, could work in the comic book, could work in either, right? And that's kind of the idea. Because one thing that's cool about the Marvel comics for G1 and the cartoon for G1, they're very separate continuities. But there's a lot that you can actually take from one and have it work in the other, if that makes sense. So there are certain things that work that don't work, but yeah. So, but then as far as Prowl from animated fitting in that same universe, this is kind of my idea. Prowl from animated has a similar backstory to animated. Like, in other words, a G1 animated Prowl is Prowl the Second. Because they did that in Prowl 2 in the Robots in Disguise 2001 toy line. There was a Prowl 2. So I kind of like the idea that Prowl had offspring that we don't. We don't have to know how Transformers reproduce, but we just know that, kind of like how Quick Switch is Six-Shot's son, Prowl the Second is, but Prowl the Second is Prowl the original that we know son. So Prowl the original died in the movie, right? But his son carries his legacy and has the ninja backstory that animated has. So he's trained as a ninja before he rejoins the Autobots. And that but then he comes to Earth and then he has to face off, I'd say, against Barricade, who it was me who betrayed your father, or something like that. Like, that would be a cool storyline to kind of go for. You see where I can kind of make things work, and I try to fit, even especially the legacy toys. Like, you can come up with creative storylines that way. But when you do, try to make it fit within a universe, That's an idea too. That's another thing too, is the whole chip chase with the Binaltech storyline. Speaking of Jazz, do you know that Jazz appeared in season 3 in more than one episode? He may not have had a speaking line, but he did appear. Jazz. In fact, I think my Jazz retrospective, I actually show all. I think pretty much all the clips of Jazz in season three. He was in Five Faces of Darkness, right? He won the race. There was he was in Five Faces of Darkness Part 5, fighting alongside Rodimus Prime. So Jazz was shooting at the Decepticons alongside Rodimus. I think when Blitzwing, yeah, the whole Monka Spanka thing, which I explained that in that retrospective too. Um, yeah, Scatman Crothers passing was the reason why he didn't. Well, actually, no, because he uh, he died in November of '86. So it's possible they could have gotten Scatman, but they didn't because they had already made and aired Five Faces of Darkness by then. So yeah, Blur wanted to win that race. Blur would have won that race, but Jazz was in season three. So yeah, you highly appreciate my brainstorming capabilities. Yeah, like this is the dude. I can brainstorm this way with Transformers stories for hours. I can come up with ways for storylines to work for like uh so many characters, and I could totally make continuity patch holes in so many places, you know and that kind of goes for pretty much, because there are continuity loopholes in every Transformers continuity, like every single one, you know um to my yeah, for anime, you're talking about animated season 4, or you're talking about G1 season 4. If for well, Jazz would have shown up because there was a toy for him in 1990. So there was an Action Master toy for Jazz. So um Jazz was in Dark Awakening. That's right. And he was also in Forever Is a Long Time Coming. But that was a replay of that. I think, well, I don't know if it was a replay of that race or if it was just Jazz participating in another race. So, um, I do want to see more Rodimus and Ultra Magnus stories. I do want more of that. I want more of that in a cartoon. So, but yeah, I have talked for 2 hours. It is 11:30 in my time, and I do have to get to bed. But I hope you guys have enjoyed me ranting on about Transformers. I appreciate those of you who tuned in. Um, and yeah, keep my mom in your prayers. For those of you who watch, yeah, definitely keep my mom in your prayers. Um, and and here's another thing I want to let you guys know about something. Um, I am open. Like if people say like I don't agree with you about this, I enjoy this, and um, yeah, my mom is ill and she's gonna be fighting something, so it's kind of the reason why I've um yeah, that's funny. Um, I need to tell my kids it's not. Oh, so that's kind of funny that you say that. It's kind of funny that you say that. So it's not Hot Rod's fault. He made a mistake in underestimating Megatron. He did. That was his mistake. Optimus did not blame him. Optimus knew it was Megatron's treachery. All right. Um, so like my kids, like they watched the 86 movie now several times. And my sons, the whole time we're watched that whole scene the second time through. Like we watched the movie. I've watched the movie now like hundreds of times, right? Like more times than I can count. Um, but my son, the second time he watched it, that whole Optimus versus Megatron fight, my son literally says this: just shoot him, just shoot him, just shoot him. That's what my son kept saying, and he kept saying it, and then Hot Rod jumped in to try and stop Megatron, right? So, that being said, my son even recognized that it was Optimus Prime should have, followed through, but it would have been out of character for Optimus to do that. And Megatron knew that, and Megatron took advantage. Hot Rod was not strong enough to stop Megatron. Neither was Sideswipe and Sunstreaker in a plague of Insecticons when they came and tackled Megatron. Megatron literally picked the two of them up and threw them like ragdolls. Hot Rod was this like pretty much the same size as Sideswipe and Sunstreaker. So Hot Rod jumping in was also part of his function. Hot Rod's function was a cavalier. A cavalier is a soldier who would be willing to die for their leader. Hot Rod was willing to die to save Prime. That was his bravery. Dumb bravery, but bravery nonetheless. And Hot Rod is really not to blame for doing what he was meant to do, but he did it wrong. He took the wrong action. It's how many times have we, as young adults, kids, or someone in a responsible role, made a really bad decision that could have been better if you handled it better, but you were trying to do the right thing. Like, you're trying to do the right thing, but you fail. And because you fail, you feel like a failure. But you're really not to blame for it. It's like you were trying to do the right thing, but you could have taken a better action. So Optimus never blamed Hot Rod for it. In fact, Hot Rod grew from that experience. The one we should blame in fiction, like not just Hasbro corporate for wanting to kill Prime, but Megatron himself was the one responsible for killing Optimus Prime. He took full responsibility for killing Optimus Prime. I have already crushed Optimus Prime with my bare hands, he said. I will, crush you like, I will crush you with my bare hands, right? Like first Prime, then Ultra Magnus, and now you. So Megatron, even as Galvatron, took responsibility for it. And Galvatron later on in the Return of Optimus Prime, in a deleted line, which was probably recorded. I don't know if it was recorded or not, because I would love to find out if it was. But I killed you once as Megatron. I'll kill you again. I don't need you anymore, Optimus. Was, if you remember that one line where he says, "I don't need you anymore, Optimus." So much for your resurrection. That line in The Return of Optimus Prime was preceded by, "I killed you once as Megatron, I'll kill you again." So he took full on responsibility for killing Optimus Prime. So Megatron was to blame for that. Hot Rod was trying to do the right thing, but he made an error in judgment in what he was trying to do. He was doing the same thing that Sideswipe or Sunstreaker would do. If it was Sideswipe who jumped in to stop Megatron and failed, would you blame Sideswipe? If it was Bumblebee who made the same action to try and save Prime, would you blame Bumblebee? Ask yourself that question. Because if you don't, then why are you blaming Hot Rod? Oh, because Optimus Prime died and he was a new character, so you can blame the new guy, right? How many times have you been blamed for being the new guy in a job? You try to do the right thing. If you try to do the right thing as the new guy at a job, and everybody blames you for it not turning out well. I mean, that's pretty much what it is, right? They always blame, it was the new guy. So, yeah. Um, and so I don't, and that's why, like, you know, and then the other thing about Hot Rod is he ends up becoming the leader. You know, he becomes the next Prime. So you that's the real reason that you're angry, is because, you know, Optimus Prime is not the leader. Here, I talked for another 10 minutes. Here I was ready to end the stream, and I just realized I talked for another 10 minutes. This is what you guys do. You guys get me talking Transformers. And I could talk about Transformers for hours on end. And I'm going to continue to do so on this channel for a long time. And I am so thankful for all of you tuning in. And, you know, you guys know how much you know, I'm you know, I'm feeling it because of my mom. And, but, you know, thank you guys so much, man. I really do. I really appreciate it, guys. So, yeah, season 3 had so much potential. The animation was terrible. I agree. Animation was pretty poor in season 3, and a lot of it could, if they redid a lot of that animation, it'd be so much better. But, yeah. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna hit this. I'm gonna end the stream now. So until next time, guys.